Alright everybody, good morning. It is currently about 5:45 in the morning and we are getting ready to go on our Bowling Green, Kentucky trip. We are off to the Corvette Museum today. It's going to be about a 13-hour drive. I'm heading off to Pennsylvania and then meeting up with another C4 who is Little Red 87 Vet on Instagram. And from there on out, we are driving down the rest of the way, about 12 hours to Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm getting the car packed up now, have a few more things to go, and then we will hit the road. We got our bag of water bottles and our snack bag here. We are getting just a bit of a drizzle at the moment, nothing too crazy. Expecting a little bit of rain on the trip, nothing too much. It should be gone by the time we're in Ohio, so we are looking good to go. I will go ahead and start up the car, get her warmed up. It is pretty chilly out today, about 62 degrees right now. Honestly, perfect driving weather. I will, of course, need to get some gas, as you can see. This time around, I am almost empty. Alrighty guys, and we are off. 6 in the morning on the dot. Like I said, our first stop is Pennsylvania. We will be going to a town called Easton, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour and 45 minutes away from me here in New York, and from there we will be meeting up with another Corvette owner and driving the rest of the way down to Bowling Green, Kentucky. About a 12-hour drive from there. Should be pretty smooth sailing, I hope. And we are off. I will keep you guys updated. We're going to be doing a bit of a road trip vlog here today. I think I want to throw a Q&A in there since we're going to have a lot of driving time. I wanted to post some Q&A questions on the Instagram and go over a few things. Just any questions you guys had about me, about the car, about anything really. So yeah, we'll go from there. I will see you guys once we are on the road. Probably see you guys once we are in Easton. Alrighty, we are off right now. We are on the highway and we are looking at about an 8 a.m. arrival to Easton, Pennsylvania. So I will give you guys an update once I'm there. Probably going to get gas between there. I'm not too sure yet. Same issue, reads half of what's in it, so we are at about half a tank right now, but I might get some gas just to be on the safe side. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. So at this point in the drive, I got the message from Lil Red 87 Vet, and he had let me know that he unfortunately was no longer able to make the Bowling Green trip due to some personal family issues. It was very disappointing. I was looking forward to having the drive down with him, but he just could not make it. There's always next year. Alright guys, we are now in rural Maryland, and we are just about to pass through West Virginia. This would be a beautiful view if it weren't for that McDonald's sign. But we're doing good, trip's going well. We're actually getting pretty great fuel economy. I'm getting about 23 miles a gallon, staying roughly, 70, 75, sometimes 80 on the highway. Overall, nothing crazy. No hiccups yet. The trip has been smooth sailing so far. Let's hope it stays that way. I did want to show you guys something that I made. For those who don't know, it's pretty common to buy a hatch vent for the back of the hatch glass here. And what that does is when you have the windows open and the hatch is closed, all the air comes in and kind of foils back there, and that makes it kind of noisy on your ears for one, but it also kind of hurts your fuel economy a little bit. So instead of buying a $40 hatch vent, I went to the hardware store and picked up just this $5 hook. I glued some rubber hose that I cut on there, and it fits on there perfectly. Just clips right down into the normal hatch area. and it's been great. Huge thing for me because this is a 13-hour trip, and like I said, there is a lot of wind noise when you do have the windows down. That is one of the gripes I do have about these C4s. However, that does help a whole lot. So, little tip for you guys: if you ever want a hatch vent but don't want to spend the money, 40 something bucks for them plus shipping, just go to your hardware store, make something yourself. It's really not much harder. Alright, I will give you guys another update soon. Trip is going well so far, and I'm also going to start the Q&A pretty soon. I got some questions from you guys on Instagram, and I can answer them while I'm driving. Alright, so I get quite a few questions on the Instagram account. A lot of you guys ask me things, whether it be about the car or myself, obviously mostly about the car. So I figured I'd add a Q&A section of this video here. I do have some extra time to answer some questions for you guys. So I did have you guys ask me some questions on Instagram, and the first one of those is going to be, what is your favorite and least favorite part about the car? I gotta be honest, you know, that's a hard question. My favorite part, it's kind of like a tie between the looks and the driving characteristics of the car. I absolutely love the body design of the 80s C4s. They just look phenomenal to me. I love the style. It's got the classic Corvette side profile and body lines, the rear sloped glass, everything from the past but with a modern flair. Especially my 85, I love the 85s because they don't have a third brake light. I love how simple the rear end is. All you see is just 4 red circles, the classic Corvette look. No third brake light, kind of breaking up that rear end design. The whole side profile is probably my favorite part about the car's design though. As far as my other favorite part, it is the drivability. Like, the driving characteristics on these cars are just amazing. They handle very well, they're stiff, they take corners extremely well. I mean, you can just throw it into another lane and it's kind of perfectly fine. It just kind of sits happy. There's not much body roll. Woo! There is not much body roll at all, especially with the stiffer shock absorbers. I can show you a little corner right here. This is can't go too fast with traffic, but you can see they are just very happy. I could turn in quite a bit more from here if I wanted to, if there wasn't traffic and police everywhere. But yeah, they handle excellently, and I would say that's probably my favorite part about the car. Also just the raw experience. My 85 has no driver assist, no ABS, no traction control, nothing to interrupt, just the driver and the car together. It's just every input that you make is your own input. You don't have a computer telling you what to do, and that's one other thing that I really love about these cars, especially the 85, like I have. But yeah, I would say my least favorite part is also hard. I gotta say it's probably the interior rattles, which is in part the fault of old suspension, such as bushings and shocks. But you might be able to hear, going over bumps like these, there are some rattles in the plastic. It's not all that bad. But you know, when you're comparing it to a modern car, it definitely rattles quite a bit. But that is relatively to be expected. This was 80s plastic on an 80s chassis. It isn't bothersome most of the time, especially when you have music, you really don't even notice it. But that probably would be my least favorite part about the car. On to the next question: what suspension option is your car, or what type of suspension do you have? So my car was a base model back in 1985. It still technically is a base model. However, as you guys saw by the last YouTube video, I did just install Z51 shock absorbers. So for those who don't know, there's the base model, there's the Z52 and the Z51. The Z51 was the highest performance option for suspension, and the Z52 was a milder version of the Z51. So sort of like a in-between between the base model and the Z51 was the Z52. A little confusing at first, but yeah, my car was a base model. I did just put the Z51 shocks, which are very nice. It feels a whole lot more stable. It kind of just handles even better now than it already did, which it did handle well before. I did not put the Z51 springs or the Z51 sway bar, just the shocks over here, and the car feels very nice, as you can see. I shouldn't do too much of this, but yeah, that's what suspension I am running. I'm very happy with it. It was a little pricey, sure. Bilstein Z51s were for $410, I believe, for the set of 4, but not all that bad, to be honest. The next question is, how is that weather stripping? For those who don't know, How's That weather stripping is a meme within the C4 Corvette community. The weather stripping are the rubber seals on the outside of the car that connect all the doors, the rear hatch, the hood, pretty much everything. The top up here, they keep the rain out from the interior. So what happens with rubber that's sitting for 40 years, no matter how well you take care of the car, it's pretty much guaranteed that the weather stripping will degrade. So just about every single C4 out there will have at least some degree of damaged or rotted weather stripping. But all in all, to be honest, my weather stripping is not that bad. For 40 years old, it is completely original. I haven't replaced any of it. And it keeps the rain out, other than a small drip up here on my pillar, my front pillar, and I do have a small drip in the rear hatch. Luckily, the rear hatch drip does go onto the privacy cover. I always leave the privacy cover folded out, so it drips on there rather than the carpet or leading to anywhere else. But all in all, the weather stripping on my car is surprisingly decent. It does its job apart from a drip or two, and it really only drips when it's not moving. So while I'm driving, the wind is blowing the water past it. It doesn't really drip at all. I do hear from some of you guys that your weather stripping is almost a full-on stream of water when it rains, and that's some sketchy stuff. I would not like that at all. I would definitely take care of that. But for right now, mine isn't bad enough to where I see a need to replace it. On to the next question. This is a little random. The question is, have you ever dated anyone? And then, is your car automatic or manual? So that's a little strange, but I will go ahead and answer it. So yeah, I have dated people, of course. I'm 20 years old. I've had 3 actual kind of longer term relationships in that time frame. My last relationship ended this past December. And however, I did just meet somebody new. I did meet a girl, and she's very sweet, she's very cool, and I like her. We went on our first date just a few days ago, and that has been going very well. So I am dating somebody right now, and yes, I have dated people in the past. And on to the completely different subject of the next part of this question, is my car automatic or manual? Yeah, it's an automatic, as you can see. So this is a 700R4 automatic transmission. That's a 4-speed plus overdrive. It's a hydraulically controlled transmission, and it does the job. You know, it is what it is. It's an automatic. The only other option for these 80s cars as far as a manual is the Doug Nash 4+3 transmission. As I mentioned in my first video, that is a 4-speed with 3 electronic overdrive gears. And it's not a very desirable transmission to most people. Not only does it drive a bit clunky, a bit slow, it shifts a little funny, but it's just generally not the most reliable transmission in the world. The overdrive units are typically known to fail, and that is mostly the only problem with it. The mechanical 4-speed aspect of it is pretty much fine and reliable. However, for the amount of extra money you pay to buy a manual, I do not think the Doug Nash is worth the money. So I went with the best condition car for the price, which was this 1985 automatic. It was in very good condition and only cost me $4,500. And I think that does lead us to our next question, which is, have you ever considered swapping a manual transmission into the car, such as a ZF6 6-speed from a 90s C4 Corvette? And yes, I have. That's actually quite literally my exact plan. The 6-speed is my kind of dream transmission for this car. However, I would only want to do it while adding some extra power to the engine. You wouldn't be utilizing all 6 gears very well if you didn't have some extra power. But yeah, that is my plan for this car in the long run. I would love to get a 6-speed swap done to it. The 6-speed is just a great transmission. It is far better than the Doug Nash 4+3. However, again, it does just need, I would say, maybe 100-150 more horsepower from this engine to really be able to utilize it and make it worthwhile. But yeah, I absolutely would love to swap in a ZF6, and that is probably the only transmission I'd like to swap into here. Now, on to the next question. What am I most excited to see at the Corvette Museum? This is a good one. I hope this doesn't sound morbid at all, but I am actually most excited to see the sinkhole exhibit. For those who don't know, there was a pretty massive sinkhole at the Corvette Museum, I believe 2013. A whole bunch of very pristine, amazing collector Corvettes got kind of dropped into the sinkhole there, right in the middle of the museum. It's on video and everything. It's honestly pretty crazy. But they are rebuilding that sinkhole right after our trip, so it kind of worked out perfectly. I'm going to be able to see it. They turned it into an exhibit. They had a sinkhole, they pulled the cars out, and they turned it into an exhibit. It kind of just goes to show the resilience of the Corvette brand and the Chevy brand as a whole. All these damaged cars, and they said, you know, let's still show them in their true beauty how they are. So I think that's a very cool thing, and I'm excited to see the sinkhole. Sounds crazy. I'm excited to see the sinkhole exhibit, especially before it goes. This is my last chance to ever see it. But other than that, I would say I'm most excited to see the new C8 ZR1. We are definitely going to be seeing the ZR1 there at the museum, and I am absolutely excited to see it. We'll be able to see the drivetrain, see the body, see everything up close. It's going to be one hell of a car, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. And on to the next question: what made me choose an 85 over a later year, such as a 91 to 96? So I'll be honest, most of it comes down to the look of the car, the body. I am just not a fan of the 90s facelift. I think it's just too round. I don't like the front fog lights. I don't like the square tail lights. It's just a little too bubbly for me. And other than that, the interior I'm also not a fan of. I very much like the 80s interior like I have. I love the digital gauges. So it did mostly come down to the body and the gauges. I just think they look a whole lot better. I love this interior, like I said. But other than that, like, you know, the added power isn't much of a draw to me from the 90s models, because I kind of always knew that I wanted to build whatever motor I had anyway. So I didn't really care about having stock power. If I was looking for the most stock power possible, sure, I probably would have went for a 90s one. Obviously the 6-speed is a nice benefit, but you can swap a 6-speed into an 80s one. So again, it's like not a huge deal to me. The body design very far outweighed the added power of the 90s LT1, LT4. For those who don't know, the L98s from the 80s, my engine, they make the same amount of torque as the LT1s from the 90s. However, the LT1s are able to rev higher and therefore make more top-end horsepower. So where it really counts, there's not much of a difference. The torque is what kind of really makes these C4s go. Unless you're going above 120, 130 miles per hour all the time, you really don't need that extra rev range, and you really don't need that extra top-end horsepower. The torque is what's kind of pushing you at the low end of things. And all C4s have great low-end torque, but these 80s L98s do have the same amount of torque, about give or take 15 to 30 pound-feet of torque. They do have the same amount as the 90s LT1s. So that's my explanation for why I do prefer this 85. Well, why I prefer the 80s cars in general. Specifically why I prefer an 85, like I mentioned earlier, I love the design. I do not like the third brake light. But my favorite reason about the 85, like I mentioned earlier, is the no driver assist whatsoever. This thing is essentially a glorified V8 go-kart. Like I said, there's no traction control, there's no ABS, no stability control, none of that. It's just raw driver input. You got a limited slip differential, a bunch of torque, wide rear tires, and a nice V8 up front, and an excellently handling car around corners. And it just makes it that much more fun to me. You know, I'm not a big fan of having traction control tell me what to do with my acceleration. Sure, you can turn it off, but I don't know. That's just who I am. Call me a boomer if you want. I just prefer the no driver assist at all. You know, also call me crazy. I don't like ABS. I find if you need ABS, then you shouldn't really be doing any kind of performance driving. You should really never get to a point where ABS is engaged. You should be feathering the brake pedal just on the cusp of losing traction, and you should never really be getting to a point of needing to brake traction. Sure, it happens in emergencies, but that's not such a big deal. Because of how light these cars are, they still stop in a modern car's stopping distance, because modern cars are so heavy. These things really don't take very long to stop. The brakes are fine without ABS, so I really don't mind much at all. And yeah, that's why I prefer the 80s models, and also specifically why I prefer the 1985. So that's going to be it for questions for now. I will see if you guys ask any more, and I will add them in afterwards. But right now, my windows are up. I have no AC. It's getting very hot in here, so I will see you guys at the next clip. We should be in West Virginia by now, I believe. Either that or right at the end of Maryland. right, guys, we have officially made it to Bowling Green, Kentucky. Got the C4 here and it did amazing. Didn't complain one bit the entire 800 something miles. It just kept on chugging. As always, it never lets me down. This car just never fails to amaze me. Once again, that was one hell of a long trip. I did end up having to take a nap for about 2 hours. It was very long. I was up at 6 in the morning, and it's pretty late already. It's like 10:45, 11 p.m. Man, yeah, that was a long drive. Not too uncomfortable. The car was pretty comfy. Nothing too crazy. As soon as I got into Bowling Green, I see 3 C8s, a C5, C7. They're just all over the place. The entire town is just crawling with Corvettes. Not right now, of course, what I'm trying to show you, but you get the gist of it. We are here. I'm excited. Tomorrow is museum day and the last bit of events for the Corvette Caravan 30th anniversary celebration. And tomorrow we will be meeting up with everybody else. Unfortunately, on Instagram, you guys may know him as Little Red 87 Vet. He wasn't able to come with me. He was supposed to make the drive down with me. I was going to meet him in Pennsylvania, but due to some family issues, he had to come later, and so he wasn't able to drive down with me. But we will run into him at some point in the future. But tomorrow we're going to see a few other C4 Corvette content creators and be meeting up with them. Anyway, guys, I gotta go to sleep. This has been a very long night, very long day, but thanks for watching. This has been the first part, and we are here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. One of my all-time bucket list items to do. Always wanted to go to the Corvette Museum. So I get to the hotel here and I go and look out the window, and what do I see here? I see a C7 convertible, C8, C7 hardtop, and then over here, if you look closely, there is a garage. I'm seeing a C8, 2 more C7s. Over here on the right side, another 2 C7s. That looks like a Grand Sport over there. They're just everywhere. This is exactly what I expected from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I could not be more happy about it. I gotta be honest. This is pretty cool. I got my little fighter jet over there around the corner. You can't see it. But yeah, Corvettes everywhere. Couldn't be better. All right, guys, that is going to be part 1 of the Bowling Green road trip vlog. In the next part, we are going to be looking at the museum. I'm going to show you guys around at a few of the exhibits. We see a lot of cool cars, a lot of cool stuff, and honestly, part 2 is probably going to be my favorite part. So thank you guys for watching this first part. I will see you tomorrow when the next video is uploaded.